right, so my name is Crystal Sanchez, and I am the Diversity Committee Chair for Staff Senate. Lauren McDonald is the co-chair for the Diversity Committee, and she and I are going to moderate today's Red Talk. So our last Red Talk to kind of end out FY21 was, I believe, in June was our last one, was our, I believe, our Pride Month one. So if any of you are unfamiliar with Red Talks, it is something that our Diversity Committee, which is a very new committee, this is the third year that it has that had started in the Staff Senate. So last year we created Red Talks, which is short for Raters Engaged in Diversity. Of course, it is a play off of TED Talks, and it was, we wanted to look across campus with what all of the other student, faculty, staff organizations were doing, and wanted to see where we could fill the gaps. And so, especially with the, a lot of things that were going on in 2020, we just felt like there were lots of topics, especially regarding diversity. And, we wanted to create a space where, we could focus on different topics of diversity. One takeaway that I had from last year is I feel like I'm a very open-minded, just an ally to all, welcoming, anybody has a seat at my table, I will break bread with anyone. And what I realized last year is that I really got schooled on diversity. There's so much that is involved in diversity, whether it's learning abilities. There are some that are called invisible disabilities, whether it's hearing. There was just a ton of things that really I learned and still continue to learn. So hopefully that is what we will continue to create with this year's talk. So this is the first one that we're doing. It is back in the office, navigating the pandemic. And yes, we are still navigating the pandemic. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to submit them in the chat and or the Q&A. Carol, who's also a diversity committee member, she will be monitoring that, as well as myself and Lauren. So before we pass it over to Lauren to kind of kickstart our first Red Talk, I am going to let our panelists introduce themselves. And so they're just going to let you know who they are, a little bit of their background. And yeah, so we'll start with Amanda because I see her first.
Hi, everyone. I am Amanda Wheeler. I am a staff psychologist and assistant director at the Student Counseling Center. Let's see, I've worked here for 11 years. And one of the things that I get to do in my job is talk a lot about self-care, which is a huge topic these days as we're navigating the pandemic. So I'm excited to share with y'all today.
And Michelle.
Hi, everyone. My name is Michelle Cordova. I am a nurse practitioner with the Department of Family Medicine and Community Health at the Health Sciences Center. I have been with the department since 2018, working here on campus at the faculty and staff clinic. When the pandemic originally hit and campus kind of shut down, we shut all in-person access to the faculty and staff clinic. We have now reopened that, and so we're trying to navigate our way through the pandemic now, and kind of seeing what the future holds for us with navigating COVID on the Texas Tech campus.
And Blaine.
And my name is Blaine Grimes. I am a training specialist in talent development and human resources. And my main goal is to be an advocate and a source of support for different departments and individuals on campus, be that through offering trainings, team builder activities, different seminars. We are here to help support you. And I would like to say that I'm available to be reached by email by anyone and everyone at all times. So please always feel free to reach out if you need any resources, or if you forgot a source or need help remembering a source that I mentioned or something like that. So thank you very much for having me here today.
Thank you. So, as Crystal said, our topic today is back in the office, navigating the pandemic. So let's go ahead and get started with one of our first questions. We're going to start with one that was submitted from our audience. It says, in quote, "I'm practicing pretty strict social distancing and wearing my mask at my desk. How can I keep people from approaching my desk too closely without just telling them to move away?"
Sorry, I was muted. I think that's probably, seeing our patients face to face in clinic now. I think honestly, that's probably the biggest question that I get. How do I go back to work? How do I keep a safe distance from people? We start with the basics. I tell them all the time, we need to start how we were a year ago, how everybody was cautious and everybody respected everybody's space and distance. And we got to go back to thinking about that. We're all back on campus. We're in much more confined spaces. And so when we start thinking about that, keeping each other accountable, saying, if I'm not feeling well, that means that I'm not going in. Or if I'm not feeling too well, I'm not leaving my office. If I would need to, I'm going to Skype you, or I'm going to email you or pick up the phone, kind of keep that distance. I know it's hard to have those conversations with your fellow employees and your staff members and say, hey, let's keep a safe distance. But the best thing that I tell all my patients is to have open conversations and say, look, if you want to come into my office, I'm more than happy to do so. But if you just mind stopping, let me put my mask on. And if you feel comfortable, do you mind putting your mask on? Scooting back a little bit, keeping that 6 feet or more distance is always going to help you. And I think that when your coworker sees that you kind of stop and kind of move back or put your mask on, it's going to alert them to think, oh, okay, and it's definitely not an easy conversation to have with somebody. But I think that the more we continue to navigate this pandemic, the easier it'll become for us to be more aware of each other and how to keep each other safe.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. I think we're in a time that calls for a lot of empathy, a lot of understanding, and lots of communication. One of the difficulties, one of the great things and one of the difficulties about working on a university is that we are like a little city in and of itself. All of our jobs are very diverse. We're all in various work situations. Our offices are set up differently. Some of us don't have offices. Some of us are out on campus day in and day out. And so communication just becomes paramount. I would say that I think if you're in kind of maybe a more of a traditional office setting, you might consider making a sign that just lets people know that you're social distancing, especially if people are coming in and out of your office a lot. That way people can be mindful and respectful of your needs and your safety and your health in that situation. Another thing you might consider doing if you have the ability is to kind of close your door or partially close your door, just so that people can't immediately kind of come in and be right there next to you. Again, I know that could be challenging. Some of us don't have doors. Some people are in more open office settings, but just kind of do what you can to create that space. And then as much as possible, I would just have those conversations with your coworkers. Even if it's through email or Skype, but communicate with them and let them know that you're social distancing, that you're still wearing a mask, and that it would be helpful if you would kind of maintain their distance around you as well. But just be willing to be vulnerable, and I think you'll find that most people are going to be understanding and respectful of your health and safety. Another thing you can do, and unfortunately, I don't know the person or group of people to contact with this, but you might ask your supervisor or someone within your chain of command about getting some barriers, some of those plexiglass barriers installed in your office, and see if that's an option, especially if you're interacting with students or people face to face. A lot of you have that kind of job. So.
I didn't even think of requesting the plexiglass. Go ahead, Dr. Wheeler. I apologize.
No, you're good. I just want to say that, we often have difficulties stating our needs. And we often think that our needs are not as important as somebody else's needs. And I think that, generally, hopefully COVID has helped us realize that our own health needs impact everybody else. And so not hesitating to say, you know what, I don't feel comfortable. it's going to be okay. If your coworker gets mad, just take a deep breath and take a step back, literally and figuratively, and just know that you're not being selfish by stating that I want to protect myself. If it was anybody else, if it was anything other than COVID, you probably wouldn't have a problem with it. And so really try to just take that deep breath and state your needs.
And I think that rolls nicely into our second question, which is everyone is feeling that angst, fear, and nervousness in being back in the office around those who may not have the same views about the health crisis as we do. So what are some things that we can do for ourselves and for others during this uncertainty? More so, what can we do for ourselves when confronted with someone who is not being courteous or someone who is not being considerate of your health?
I'll go first. I think that empathy and understanding, kind of like what Blaine was saying earlier, goes a long way. And reminding ourselves that all of us are not used to this kind of environment. None of us are used to, even if, we're a year and a half, 2 years into this pandemic, we're still not emotionally and mentally used to it. And that's okay. We're going to have that angst. We're going to have that fear. I think Michelle and I were talking a while ago, and I told her it's trauma. It is prolonged trauma that we're all experiencing. And so it is absolutely normal to have some of those trauma experiences, like fear, like nervousness. And so having empathy, not only for other people, but for yourself. Don't get on yourself. Don't beat yourself up if you're having some of those daily worries, because that's normal right now. And we also need to have empathy for people that don't have the same views as us. There's reasons, whatever those reasons are, that they don't agree with whatever you agree with, there's reasons for it. It's not our job to know what those reasons are, but being respectful. We can disagree and be respectful and ask for our needs to be met in a loving, caring, respectful way. And so I think that that's number one, is if we can just be respectful of one another, differing views or whatever, if they're not being courteous to you about your health, being courteous back, it'll kind of show them that that's the environment that you want, is a respectful, courteous environment. I make it sound a whole lot easier than it is, and I want to recognize that. The more we do it as a society and as a workplace and as a department, the more it's just going to become second nature to us.
I love, Dr. Wheeler, that you kind of added this, us being our own advocate, and, it being, there's something that you said that really resonated with me. And that was that if it were anything else, that we would stand up for ourselves. And just because this particular thing, is COVID, then it shouldn't, differ from any other situation that, maybe if, someone were coming in and they were having high anxiety, how would we handle that? Or if someone were coming in and they were aggressive, whatever the situation is, being an advocate for yourself and your own safety, regardless of what it is. So I really like that point.
Absolutely. If we can't be our own advocate, more than likely, we're not going to have other people advocate for us. And I hate saying that, but it's true. And so standing up for yourself, again, is key to probably life in general, quite frankly.
Agreed.
One thing that I would like to add is, the stressors that we have up here at work, and, being in contact with maybe some coworkers that don't see things the way we do. We always tell, what we always tell our patients is, when you leave work, try to find an escape. There's a lot of stress at work right now on top of just your normal stressors that you had pre-pandemic, but try to find an escape, try to do something that, that engages you with your family, that gets your mind off of the craziness that's going on at work and the craziness of the world right now. And if you can just take that time to, stay away from your phone or turn off the TV, don't watch the news for a little bit, because that drives a lot of the anxiety that we see with the patients. You can find that time and just focus on your family and focus on things, go for a walk. Sometimes that really does help, and it kind of helps you come back to work with a clear, open mind to take on the next day.
Michelle, something that you said reminded me also of focusing on what you have control over, which is, some of those things that when you do go home from work. I don't watch the news particularly for that reason, because I know that it heightens my anxiety. I can't always control my coworkers' behaviors. I can't always control the news or society, but I can control how I choose to interact and act. I wear my mask whenever I go outside of my office. I use hand sanitizer. And that's the only thing that we have control over is ourselves. And really focusing on the fact that you're living the life that you want despite whatever everybody else is doing, I think can be really helpful in reducing some of that anxiety as well.
And I'm just kind of curious, in a little bit, because I think I experienced this myself. I may or may not be a workaholic and suffer from work-life balance. But what are some things that we can kind of, tell about ourselves where we might be experiencing, some stress and I'm just kind of curious, what are some ways that you all kind of de-stress? I know that you said kind of go for a walk or spend time with family. So what are ways that we can say, oh, okay, maybe I'm a little irritable, maybe I'm experiencing some sort of, a little bit of stress. And then what are some ways that I could de-stress?
I'm talking a lot, so I apologize. I think that anything and everything can be used to de-stress, quite frankly, as long as you're using it and being intentional about that's why you're doing it. I'm a huge believer of intentionality. So if not watching the news is something that you're intentionally doing to de-stress, if we think about self-care and stress management, we really want to think about holistically. So not just mental health wise, but physical health wise, romantic or relationship wise, spirituality wise, things like that. And so thinking about ways that energize you or relax you. So for example, some people go and get manicures or pedicures as a way to de-stress. But if you notice that every time you go to the nail salon, your anxiety goes up because nobody's wearing a mask, that's really not self-care. That's just checking another thing off your list, right? The same with Netflix. Some people binge watch Netflix as a way to de-stress. It's not de-stressing or self-care if you're binge watching Netflix and you're not really engaging in the activity. You're just, all of a sudden 7 episodes have gone by and you can't remember what has happened in the 7 episodes that you've watched. That's not really de-stressing. That's checking out from the world, which is okay sometimes as long as you're not doing it all the time. And so really being intentional about focusing on all of those areas. So how to reduce stress at work, in your physical life, in your mental life, going to therapy. We all get EAP, Employee Assistance Program. Utilizing that, talking to medical professionals like Michelle, not being afraid to go to the doctor can be really, really important ways to take care of ourselves as well.
And there's some really good responses going in the chat. Listening to music, reading a book, going for walks, Audible books are great. Sporting events, just kind of throwing yourself into outdoor activity, any outdoor activity that you like to do. All of those are great as well.
How do you de-stress, Blaine?
So I'm kind of strange. I'm going to watch Dr. Wheeler and see how much she cringes when I say this to know whether I need to back off a little bit. But no, I appreciate your comments about the difference between checking out and de-stressing. I do. So my background is in the humanities. I did my master's in English here at Texas Tech, and so I read a lot to sort of de-stress. But I like to read things that sort of challenge me. My wife always jokes with me that I really like sad and depressing things, and the more sad, the more depressing it is, the better it is. And to a certain extent, that's true. But I try to engage with those kinds of things because it's almost a form of catharsis. I'm able to sort of empathize with other people, or see people go through things that may be difficult, and sort of that helps me cope with it in my own way. So really, when I'm trying to do those things that are entertaining to me, like reading, watching movies, listening to audiobooks, listening to podcasts, I try to continually push myself to find new things, or to gravitate towards something or try something that I might not normally go towards, just to expand my horizons and make sure that I'm not sort of just completely checking out. So that's kind of the way I approach it a lot of times.
So would you consider true crime podcasts relaxing?
There must be something about it. I think that there's there's something like kind of Freudian, I think, about people listening to murder podcasts while they're sitting around other people at work. And maybe there's a bit of catharsis there that's hopefully healthy.
I definitely, I know Lauren likes podcasts, and I'm a big a crime junkie podcast fan. So all right. So next question. This was also an audience question. What are the initiatives the TTU system is providing for staff well-being in the midst of the pandemic? And I know that's kind of a broad question, the TTU system, but maybe just offering some insight on some ways that we've been able to support our staff as best that we can. Well, again, as leaders, navigating the pandemic as well.
So I'm in a very awkward situation where I don't like self-promoting at all. But I'm also, this is part of my job, and this is what I love to do. And we're here in talent development to be a resource for other people. So I'm going to kind of point you to some of the things that we're doing in talent development that can hopefully be help. And of course, I'm working with a fantastic team. It's not just me by any means. So I'm not self-promoting, I'm team promoting. And that's a little bit different. But so we're doing some very focused sort of programming within the next year or so, especially coming up in 2022. We're focusing on a variety of mental health topics for learning series and book clubs and things like that. So I'll mention some of these things. And in fact, I'm a co-host. I can do this, can't I? So let me go ahead and share my screen with you. Now, all of these dates are tentative and speakers are tentative. So just keep that in mind. But we're looking kind of at 2022 now. And so we have happy half hours. These are 30-minute micro learning sessions that we hold online. So you don't have to navigate any social distancing when you do that. And so we're going to have the Student Counseling Center come and work with us again. EAP, some folks from psychology are going to come talk with us. So we're going to have some various mental health topics there for those 30-minute micro learning sessions. In February, we're going to be doing a book study with Christy Collins from the Counseling Center. The book is called Switch on Your Brain, if you want to check that out. And so Christy will be leading us in a series of discussions about that. We're going to be doing a coffee break again on managing stress. We'll be having QPR talk about suicide prevention and all of these different things that you can see, but this is sort of coming up. Again, I know some of this is coming up next year, but we plan ahead. We plan ahead here in our department. So those are some of the things that we have coming up. And again, if you have any, I can't distribute this to you, unfortunately, because it's all still sort of in flux and it's not official. But that's kind of what we've got on the docket. We also have a learning series class schedule coming up starting in January of 2022, where every single month we're going to focus on a sort of different topic and different aspect of mental health. So stay tuned to our newsletters, to our website if you want to learn any more about that. And I'll drop our website link into the chat here so that you can take a look at that. And of course, if you're looking for dates and can't find them, you're welcome to email me, or even better, my coworker McClay Bowie, who I'm sure you have all received emails from at some point. She she handles a lot of our events, and she is an expert. She is a pro, and she knows everyone. She knows all the answers, and so she can definitely help you out if I can't. But I will drop that link in the chat.
Blaine, I don't know whose idea that was, but I am so excited. I feel like that is kind of one of the things, I think that TTU is doing their best. I think that each department, I think that, again, no one taught us how to do all of these things and to check all of these boxes to make sure that we're helping everyone on every layer that it affects them. But I kind of feel like the mental health aspect hasn't been a ton discussed. I love Dr. Rojas McWhinney. We actually had her as a speaker in January for New Year, Say Me. And so just about, just kind of acceptance with, where you are, who you are, all of those things. And so I love that you guys are focusing not just a month on that, but different topics. So I cannot wait to log in and be a part of that. I'm glad you let us know.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's all McClay. That's her initiative. That's all of her genius planning. And I will say too, again, to just sort of continue to team promote here. We have on the website that I dropped in the chat, we have a list of our trainings. A lot of those are available, recordings are available online in case you are not able to make it to live ones. We also work with departments. So if you are interested in hosting a training on any of these topics, we're happy to come over to your department or work with you through Zoom, however you would prefer, and hold those trainings for you. So we do things that are more departmental focused as well. So just always reach out to us.
I want to second what Blaine said in terms of the counseling center. We do only provide therapy to our students, but part of the thing that I love the most is I do also get to go to departments and talk about mental health strategies, self-care strategies, things like that. Blaine and the rest of the HR team has had me come talk about self-care and things like that. And so if that's something that your department is in desperate need of, contact one of us, either Blaine or myself, and we can definitely get whatever you need. Because I agree with Crystal, we forget about the mental health aspect of COVID quite often, and it's pretty big way that it's impacted our mental health. So yes.
So, Dr. Wheeler, since you brought that up, what are some tips that we can use to build resilience and manage the job stress overall?
Sure. It's a big question. I like what Crystal said in terms of New Year, Say Me. One of my biggest pet peeves when the pandemic started was social media, and social media saying, now you don't have an excuse to become your best self. That is a lie. Like I said, we are still experiencing daily trauma. And so acceptance of the fact that you might be struggling is so important. It is really, really hard to thrive right now. In reminding yourself of that. Really, a lot of people are just surviving. They're not becoming their best selves because they're worried about their own life and death and the life and death of everybody around them. So I think that's first and foremost, is to remind yourself that if you are struggling, it's okay. Everybody is in one way or another. In order to build resilience, I think utilizing your social support system. People are so important, whether that's your colleagues, whether that's friends, whether that's family, getting whatever kind of support you need from them. And so maybe it is talking about true crime and not talking about COVID, or maybe it's talking about COVID and your fears and just being open about that. Maybe it's watching stupid YouTube videos about cats, right? And so really kind of utilizing everybody around you in the ways that you need. Recognizing what we need can sometimes be really, really hard. And so if you're not really sure what you need, try different things and figure out what feels good to you. In terms of workplace, I think creating that workplace balance is super important. Leaving work at work and going home and just being able to breathe. can be tremendous. Utilizing, most of us don't have long commutes living in Lubbock, but utilizing your commute to leave work at your car or in your car. So I have a Spotify playlist that has jams on it that I love to sing on my way to work and from work, just to get me into a better mood, especially on those rough days when life just seems really, really hard. And taking time for yourself. Blaine, you can correct me, but HR provides us sick and vacation leave for a reason. Don't hesitate to use those. Mental health is a perfect reason to take a vacation leave. If you need a mental health day, just to lay around in your PJs and eat ice cream, then don't feel guilty about utilizing a vacation day to do that. That I think can be really, really impactful as well.
I'm going to jump in, Lauren, because I love that Dr. Wheeler just said that. We have vacation days for a reason. And I know sometimes, and I'm going to speak for myself, that we feel like we are a burden. We should be able to handle all of this. What's wrong with us that we can't handle the stress of work and all of these things. But I promise you, you are not the only one that is struggling with these things. And then adding a layer of pandemic and, health concerns and health risks. And I mean, you would kind of be crazy if you didn't, feel a little bit stressed of whatever it was, whether it was COVID or just, what's going on at work. So I love that you said that. I'm lucky that I have great supervisors and a great team that I work for, that I can communicate that with them. And actually we can all communicate that with each other. So, if there is a half day where I just kind of need to, regroup and then come back to the drawing board, then I can do that. So, maybe that is something that, you should communicate, with your team in a team meeting or with your supervisor, and just make sure that there's clear communication with that. But I happen to be one of the lucky ones. I hope more people have supervisors and teams like I do, but I love that you said that it is there for a purpose, and definitely take advantage of that. Sorry, Lauren, I had to jump in and share that.
And I think the issue of a burden is really important to address too. The quote, "You can't pour from an empty cup." You are going to be much more beneficial to all of your colleagues by taking some time off to get your mental health or your physical health back in check. I won't lie, there have been times where I've taken a vacation day just to do my laundry, because I know that taking that time is going to reduce my overall stress and I'm going to be able to provide better support to my students. And so, Sandra, you said this. Vacation time doesn't mean having to leave your house. It doesn't mean having to spend money. It might just mean staying at home, doing chores or not doing chores, going out or not going out, I think can be really, really helpful. And you're much more beneficial to your coworkers that way.
Some of the feedback that we get, on the medical side of it, when patients are calling us to, they think they're not feeling well, they're at work, they're sick. So we try to tell them, well, can you come within the next 30 minutes? And a lot of the feedback that we get is, no, I'm jam-packed with meetings and I need to attend this and this and this. And what we want you to know is that if you're not feeling well, take that time to step away and say, I'm not feeling well. I need to go be seen. Because the more you sit there and put yourself through all this other stress, the more that just weighs down on you, and it causes your emotional and along with your physical well-being to kind of fall. And so I can't tell you how many times that we get told, I need the latest appointment of the day. I'm running fever and whatnot, but I just can't leave because I have so many meetings. And we want you to know, please take care of yourself. Please take that time to step away. Know when it's the right time to step away and get the help that you need so we can get you back to feeling better and back, to work.
And it's super important to have the support of your supervisors in order to leave. Like Michelle said, in the next 30 minutes, you've got to be very flexible as a supervisor to allow your staff to go and do that. So What other things can be, Blaine, can be supportive for employees and their supervisors?
Yeah, I think just to reiterate what Dr. Wheeler and everyone else has said, that idea of sort of collective action of communication with one another is so important, because it really is easy, I think, for all of us sitting here on a panel to just say, well, just take the time, just do the thing. But to be honest, there are systems and there are sort of material conditions that get in the way of that at times. And those things can't be ignored and they can't be taken lightly. So if you are in a situation where there is something like that hindering you, the only way that's going to thrive is in silence. So talking with your colleagues, I'm not talking about gossiping, I'm not talking about spreading rumors, but taking collective actions with your coworkers to make sure that you can take care of your mental and physical health is well within your right. Of course, you can reach out to our department, to HR, if you're experiencing some of those issues, so that you have absolutely every right and every obligation to take care of yourself, because fundamentally you are a human being much more than you are a source of profit for this university or a cog in a machine. And it's important for you to keep that in mind and know that. So I would say that as a preface to everything. I would also say you can just there are tons of different activities you can do. So I'm going to share my screen again. We actually have a training in our department on building resilience, and McClay and I co-teach that. If you're interested in hosting that with your department, reach out to us and let us know. One of the things we walk people through when we do this is crafting a resilience plan. And this can be useful in a number of different ways. And this is something you can honestly even do right here, right now. If you take a scratch sheet of paper and make 4 quadrants on a paper, you can do this. And so what this asks you to do is just kind of think through situations in your life, especially in the past, it says here, where you've had to be resilient and where you've been able to overcome adversity. And then think through the 4 S's of resilience here. So supports that kept you upright. Some examples people usually list: a spouse, a partner, a friend, a family member, maybe music. Dr. Wheeler mentioned a playlist that she listens to, right? Like that gets her ready to go for the workday. Strategies that kept you moving. So a lot of people exercise is something that really gets them out of a rut. There are all sorts of mental and physical benefits to exercise. Hobbies that you can throw yourself into, mindfulness practices. I have been about a month and a half ago, I picked up a subscription to Headspace, which is a mindfulness meditation app. It's about $70 a year, I think, when it's full price. And in my experience, just in a month and a half, absolutely worth it. Just guided ways to sort of get you into thinking about being more intentional as you go throughout your day. So things like that. Sagacity, wisdom that gives you comfort and hope. So these could be inspiring quotes, inspiring conversations you have with other people, articles you read, books you read, solution-seeking behaviors that you've showed in the past. And I would encourage you to actually, if you do this, actually write these things down. The psychologist Brene Brown talks about when we write things down, we create, there's actually sort of a neural link that's created there that makes that sort of hardwires this sort of thinking into our brain and reminds us that we have been successful in the past and that we can overcome present and future difficulties. So that's just one additional tool you can use as well.
One of the things that I tell my students all the time in relation is to make a coping skills box, whatever that looks like, that has those ready-made things that that provide you comfort. So having that list that Blaine said, having coloring books or a journal in there, or those quotes that make you feel good. Having a drawer at work that has like your favorite lotion or your favorite scent in it, and your favorite chocolate that you only get whenever you're super stressed out. But having those in a spot that you know exactly where to go when you're stressed, so that you don't have to think about it. It's just their easy, super access.
All right, and it looks like we are wrapping up. So if anyone wants to share any questions, any input, it looks like a few have used the chat box. Someone said, Renee is my hero and has helped me in more ways than I can count. And then thank you for validating that it is okay to not be okay and that we are not crazy for continuing masking, social distancing, etc. And I second that. I think
Yes.
that, you know, and just again, just to kind of mimic what Dr. Wheeler said, whatever your stance is, or however you feel, for whatever reasons, that we can be respectful to everyone and their views, while also being advocates for ourselves. That's my takeaway from this. I also like that sometimes if you're, I'm definitely a social introvert. I will be social if I have to be, but I like to just kind of hang back and, you know, hang out with my dogs at home and listen to my true crime podcasts. But I like that Blaine said, you know, a way that you can communicate without communicating is maybe that you do put a sign on your door, or if you have maybe a cubicle or something that says, I'm still continuing to social distance. So sometimes it's hard for us to be courageous and to have that, you know, dialogue with someone. So that's a way that you can have a dialogue without actually speaking to them. So, and I do want to wrap it up with some resources. Just, you know, I know that Dr. Wheeler talked about some of our counseling opportunities. I could be wrong, but I believe you get 6 sessions for free or of no charge. And, you know, some information on that. And then any other resources that you all want to add to the chat for our listeners today. And it looks like there is another question. Dr. Wheeler, you talked about being intentional. Can you expand on what you mean by that?
Absolutely. Really simple is, why are you doing what you're doing? So are you reading the book to distract yourself? Are you reading, you know, I love romance novels, and I will say that I love romance novels because I like to live in a fairy tale land every once in a while where everything turns out great. Okay. I read those so that I can pretend that I'm living there. And so it really is to disconnect from life. If you are eating whatever you're eating, being intentional and knowing why you're eating it, you know, like my go-to is ice cream. But if I'm just mindlessly eating ice cream, it's not doing anything for me other than adding weight to myself. So being mindful of, you know what, I am really stressed out right now. I need this piece of chocolate because I know that chocolate can raise my endorphins. Okay, that's fine. Again, but if I'm sitting there eating a whole gallon and I don't realize that I'm doing that, it's not doing anything for me. So being aware of why you're doing what you're doing to take care of yourself. Again, sometimes exercise can be really frustrating and really stress inducing. However, if you're viewing it as, I'm going to use this yoga to relax and not to lose weight or whatever, it has a whole different function for you, and it has a whole different meaning. So yeah.
All right, any other resources that want to be shared in the chat? I know Blaine mentioned some that we're starting next year, but. All right, well, I will, on behalf of the diversity committee, and I think everyone that joined today's talk, I think we all needed this. You know, when we were talking about things to focus on, we thought, oh my goodness, we're going to talk about navigating the pandemic. I thought we'd be over this. And, you know, here we are, you know, going on, you know, 18 months later, almost 2 years later. And, you know, I think it's a good refresher. It's a good, it was a good time to just take a step back and say, it's okay. Like someone mentioned in the chat, it's okay to still not be okay with what's going on. Like we're still figuring it out. The news is, you know, ongoing, and, you know, all of the layers. And so there's so many new things that we're trying to figure out. And it's, you know, not only, I also love that Blaine just said, you know, we aren't just staff members, faculty, students. We're also humans at the end of the day, and this support here is definitely something that's very much needed. And I love this mental health aspect. Looks like Dr. Wheeler did add some information in the chat. So please feel free to snag that before we close out. Oh, some other information. All right. And it looks like, let me make sure we're not missing. So counseling.ttu.edu is Dr. Wheeler's website. There's some self-help resources for faculty and staff. Also, the SEC has the Mind Spa. I always forget about that.
Yes, it's
yeah.
free. I'll go ahead. It's free. We have a state-of-the-art massage chair. It is amazing and massages you practically from head to toe. And all you need to do is just call to reserve it. We have parking right in front of our office, which makes it easy. I told Michelle that she needs to come use it one of these days since we're in the same office building, and how busy she's been. But it also has yoga mats. It has relaxing music. It has dim lights and just a place to just come relax. And so again, open 8 to 5. So anytime that a lunch break, you could come over for 30 minutes and just get a chance to breathe.
I always forget about that. And so she put the telephone number in there if you wanted to reserve it. There was also the year-long Wonder Health program TTU gives employees is awesome, mental and physical health. And then there is a link to that, and then a message to Dr. Wheeler. I have a self-care stash, but didn't know that's what it was. Ghirardelli mini dark chocolate squares. Oh, yum. And then work coloring book by Kathy Whaler. Arts and Ideas, Bath and Body Works. Love always wins lotion. I agree with that. There's nothing like some good smelling stuff to just. So thank you again. For everyone that joined, for the panelists, for taking time out of their day. I know that all three of you all are busy, so we definitely appreciate you taking some time out, and hopefully we will see everyone at the next Red Talk.
Thank you, everyone.